Welcome to the London Horror Movie Club. I'm horror writer Lauren Jane Barnett.
And I'm Chris Sapikowski, Lauren's older brother, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 8.
Join us as we talk about the wild, weird, and wonderful horror films set in England's eerie capital. Welcome back, horror fans. This month we've got an extra episode, which is a bit of fun because we have watched yet another amazing classic movie. This time we picked it off of Tony's top 10 list. So if you haven't seen the top 10 list episode, definitely recommend. We had very different top 10s, the three of us. But this particular one is off of Tony's list, so I will let him introduce it.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. This is very wonderful, very exciting. This is a film that I think 1985, if I remember rightly, early 80s, mid 80s. American, very independent film, very low budget, made with a lot of love, some great special effects, some great monsters, and some middle-aged women having lunch. Uh, so it is this film here. It's the Deadly Spawn. Da, da, da. So this is the original 1980s British VHS that we would have found in the video rental shops. And Lauren's there holding up
The
the
Arrow DVD.
the Arrow release, Anchor release.
Anchor.
Is it Arrow or Anchor? Yeah,
Yeah, it's Arrow. It says
Arrow
Arrow.
release DVD. Yeah, which has got a great little book in it, I have to say. And like good double sleeve cover. So yeah, that's us. It's really fun. What does everyone think? We watched it. Lauren and I watched it again this morning. After watching it not that long ago. Chris watched it a couple of nights ago.
I did. I watched it twice.
I can't wait to talk about it. I absolutely love it for so many reasons. What did you guys think?
So, Chris, what did you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so I watched it twice, only because the first time I watched it, I there was a lot. I need to watch it again, and because I found that I did not like it when I first started it, and I'm like, what is going on? And I was having too many questions going on in my head. Of one, I thought it was a British film, so it already threw me off. There was just a lot of things. My mind wasn't in the right spot. Later on that evening, I was like, okay, now I'm in the right spot. I got popcorn. I'm house to myself. Like, let's put it on. And then, strangely, I really enjoyed it. There. Kind of reminded me of like a throwback. Not that I watch a ton of the movies, but the 1950s um, horror monster movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
The monsters. It was. I feel like you have to be in the right kind of frame of mind to watch it. But man, I did enjoy it, and it was low budget. I think it was kind of noticeably low budget, but you could
Mm.
tell that they really put their heart and soul into the movie, making it.
Exactly. So let me just mention what it's about briefly then. It's about an alien life form that crashes to Earth in a meteor, and then basically goes on a killing spree. And it what's the word? Multiplies. Like worms, I suppose, or whatever you want to, little parasites that then grow. It was made only a few years after Alien, I suppose. So there's a lot of Alien sort of references in it. But like, I think you're right, though, Chris, in that it has got that 50s monster feel. And it references it. The boy in the film is they do that the old trope that the boy in the film is a horror fanatic. And
Right.
it's posters all over the wall, and he's dressing up, everything. So, and that whole sort of nostalgia to the 50s is definitely referenced. But then what they do, and again, I think, like you said, Chris, what I love about it is it has that kind of Sam Raimi Evil Dead enthusiasm. Like the kind of like, we're going to make this film and we're going to raise the money and we're going to put all these crazy, gory special effects in it. And we're going to create this bonkers monster and we're just going to get it made. And I think that's what I really like about it. That was one of the things I like about it anyway.
That's good. I think for me, the way they do the way they like build, I guess, the special effects really works for me because knowing small budgets, they had quite a lot to work with actually in the end, but you know that like you might not necessarily always want to show like full on intense graphics every single time. And I thought they did a really good job of building it. So you got like, the shadow at the start. It's kind of a funny looking shadow. I'm not gonna lie. I giggled when I first saw it.
Yeah,
But
100%.
you've got this like, ooh, something definitely creepy looking kind of scorpiony, which doesn't actually turn
Mhm.
out to be what the shadow is.
Mm.
And then they up it because then like straight away, then you see this massively like, I mean, well, you get the guy with the blood everywhere, but then the next time you see the monster, you get like full on the teeth and the everything.
Yes.
And so then you're like, you've done this so early. What are you going to do next? But then they make it worse every single time you see it. It gets bigger. There's more of them. They're creepier than ever. And then it goes even like further into the ridiculous. Tony mentioned the like women having lunch. Once they've shown you this huge, massive monster and all his little babies sucking on people's brains and holding skulls and popping out of eyes, you're like, what are they going to do? And instead, they just let them loose on an afternoon vegetarian luncheon, which is
Yeah.
just hilarious. So, like,
Yeah.
at that point, and I thought it was great that they did that because they built it so well so that each time you're like, what is happening?
Yeah, well, exactly. Because I first started watching it, and you see it's like the first scene is that you see the two campers and the tent and the meteorite sort of flying through, crashing onto Earth, and then obviously something's coming out of it. And the first it's just two maybe three first deaths. They're all off screen, aren't they? It's like you said, you see the glasses fall to the ground and the blood splashed onto the glasses, and then the silhouette on the tent, and then when they're in that's right, it's the two campers, and then it's the dad, isn't it, who goes down to the basement, and then
Yep.
he gets killed, but all you see is the blood splash on the light bulb. It's that old thing that they did in the first Friday the 13th, so you don't actually see much. And you sort of think, oh, at this point, oh, this is just going to be one of those films where all the kills happen off screen. We're not really going to see anything. But then, like Lauren said, as soon as stuff starts happening, it's like boom, 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 and there's no rest. There's no fat. It's all meaty stuff, and it just moves from one bit to the next pretty fast. And which I really enjoy. And yeah, and the special effects. I mean, I know some of them are cheesy and things, but the monster's absolutely fantastic. The teeth and everything. And then you start talking about the sort of old ladies having their vegetarian lunch, all bringing around their pot roasts and things. And all of a sudden, there are these fat worms eating their ankles and biting their faces. It's just I thought it was absolutely hilarious. Really, really funny. Yeah, that made me very happy, that scene.
Yeah, I felt kind of the same in the sense that like when it started, not seeing the kills kind of took it out a little bit. I was like,
Mm.
oh, I want to see it. And then, as Lauren mentioned, the shadow, I was like, okay, like you could like it's hitting you, but then man, once they show it, and I thought the monster was great, and that's why I was kind of thinking like the reveal of the head, like when it finally shows and with all the teeth. I almost wonder if the movie Tremors took a little bit off of Deadly Spawn to
Yeah,
make their worm people kind of
yeah,
had the same feel, or like a really a better Little Shop of Horrors monster. Like that, we didn't have like the man-eating plant, but it kind of had all of it. But yeah, they mixed in a little bit of. There was some humor in there that I liked as well. Like at the end when they're trying to kill the monster and like his arm goes on
yeah,
his shoulder, and I'm like, who is that? Like, who would that be? Is he still alive? And then they turn around, like, no, like it was just an arm shoved in the mouth that he's coming for him. But yeah,
exactly.
I mean, they really went all in on the monster, and they should have
Yeah,
because it was definitely awesome.
yeah. Which of course they kind of did that in Jurassic Park, didn't they, as well, with the hand on the shoulder.
Yeah, they did.
So yeah. I was gonna say something, I can't think what it was. I've gone. It's
Okay,
gone.
I will bring up my major pet peeve with the film if that's
Okay.
okay. That so I the film is more about like the actions and the kills. So you don't need an amazing story or anything. But you have this monster that keeps killing all of these people. Like the second it's in their sights, it goes after the electrician and the dad and just boom, boom,
Yep.
boom, boom. And this little boy goes downstairs dressed in his horror mask because he's going to scare his uncle, presumably, with his flashlight. And he's walking through these like big puddles. It's a flooded thing. So he's making noise as he's walking through this. And he just stands there for 15 minutes of the film. What we can guess is about a couple of hours looking at the monster eating stuff and monsters everywhere around him. And I know that the point is, as you might be able to tell from the cover, the monster doesn't have eyes, so it follows by sound. So the idea is he didn't scream because he's used to seeing monsters, and so the monster isn't attacking him somehow. This is a child walking through water in a basement. Somebody heard a splash. Like this monster must have heard him. And they're dripping off of the ceiling. They're swimming next to him. They're swimming all around him. Doesn't get attacked. He just watches as like his mom's head gets pulled off and eaten alive.
Which is one of the best scenes. That this little child. He's just I think it's obviously there's the fact he realizes he can't move. Well, he realizes he can't make a sound because by then he's realizing they've got no eyes. He's also, I imagine, quite scared, so he's kind of frozen as well. But then, like you say, while the whole film's going on around him, every time it cuts back to his mum's head, there's little bits more. There's more of the flesh being ripped away, and the eyes and things, and it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's a really fun. I think that's a really fun scene. So that doesn't bother me. I think we can sort of put realism on hold for that, just because it's such a bit of fun.
First 5 minute scene where they show the dead electrician and the mom. Yeah. Fair enough. Then they cut to the brothers doing some experiments and lobotomizing one of these creatures. And then they cut back and the kid's still in the basement. And then cut back to the vegetarian dinner and all these women are being attacked. You cut back and the boy's still in the basement. That's where I'm just like, really?
No, see, I found that really funny. I found that really entertaining. And of course, what the uncle, we should just explain as well, is some sort of child therapist, isn't he? A psychologist. And I think his parents want him to have a word with this boy because he's obsessed with horror films. So you kind of imagine I'd imagine this is sort of autobiographical for the director, who's wrote it as well. It's probably something that he maybe had, or I imagine he was probably very influenced, or grew up watching horror films like we all did. So I imagine there's a little bit of that in there. But yeah, one of the things when they're having the chat, one of the things the psychologist says is something like, do you think monsters are real or something, doesn't he? Or do you think you might see one walking down the street or something like that? And the boy's like, no, of course not. So then when there's a kind of it's a little bit of a nod to that, I think, when he's there staring at the monster.
Yeah, exactly. He's talking about how he's not really scared of monsters because he knows they're not real. And then the psychiatrist guy was like, oh yeah, that's a very good point. Like, so like, obviously because he's talking about, can you scare me? Can you do? He's like, well, no, because you know about this. Yeah, no, it's funny though, Lauren, because the first time I watched the movie, that is kind of the thinking I had through the whole thing, where I was kind of like, like Tony said, you almost have to put the realism kind of on check. Like, let's just go in and enjoy it because like you did pick kind of all of it.
Obviously, we didn't have like drive-ins here, but for me, that to me is a perfect what I would imagine a drive-in film to be. That's if I was in North Carolina or whatever, and there was a drive-in, that's the sort of film I would want to go and see in a drive-in. It's got everything that you would want in a horror film. It's short, it's snappy, it's funny. One of the things I did like about it, funny, is when you see the family at the beginning, and then you see the women having their lunch. There's something strangely compelling about their inane conversations. I really enjoyed. It was so kind of so spot on in their kind of nothingness. Like the family at breakfast and all kind of it just worked for me. And I could have just watched another half an hour of that if I, if I'm being honest. I just found it, and again these older ladies having their lunch, working out who's brought what round and how they're getting excited to taste this and this and laying it all out on the sort of the buffet and things. Yeah, I was absolutely fascinated. I was probably more fascinated by that bit than I was some of the other bits. That I should have been more fascinated by. But no, it was yeah, really fun. There's some really silly special effects. When the girl's head gets cut off and her body falls out of the window, and it's like clearly it's like a rag doll dummy type thing. That was entertaining. Yeah, no, but I'll just say as well, quickly, while I'm chatting, as I do, that the creature here, the teeth, was inspired one of the monsters from my film, The Witches of the Sand. So when you see the Sandwich monster, which maybe we can put a clip in actually on the podcast, there.
Oh wow.
So that's like that sort of flies out of the fridge, but you can see, and then you see from the inside of his mouth coming attacking me. But you can see the influence from Deadly Spawn in
Oh
that,
yeah.
which I thought I just mentioned. Not that I want to go about my film, The Witches of the Sands, of course. but
Which
but
is
no,
behind you.
but no, it's definitely when the Matt, the animator, and myself liked the film, and we thought, that there's a sandwich that flies out of the fridge and turns into a demonic sandwich. And so we gave it all these crazy teeth based on Deadly Spawn. So there you go. So there you
Well,
go.
I have a question for you about this movie. So there was a scene in this movie. I think it's when the little boy's going downstairs and he's got his mask on, right? He's got his horror mask on, and they film it through the eye holes, which struck me as the most 1980s thing to do. Like it was like in every 80s horror
Yeah.
movie, there was a mask. Do they still? Is that still a? Do people still make movies? Am I missing out that like they still make mask movies?
Yeah,
Did Trick or
oh,
Treat
oh
have that?
no,
It just kind of threw me off.
yeah. What did we watch the other day? It's an older film. No, The Skull. So,
Oh, I
The
love that.
Skull, which is a great film about it's the skull of the Marquis de Sade, and you see it just floating around, and every now and again you see it through the eyes of the skull. So instead of it being a mask, you've got kind of like these
The big
sockets,
oval.
and you see the through the skull. I don't know if they still do it. I would. I think there's a lot of mileage in that. I think it
I
could be
kind of
quite
like it.
entertaining.
No, I kind of like it. And I remember I started thinking of like all the movies that I can think of that do that were kind of that 1978 to
Yeah,
1988, you know?
Halloween would
Yeah.
be a
Oh, yeah.
you know
Halloween for sure.
yeah, it's and a lot of Killer's perspective. What was the more recent one we watched together? Violent.
Acts
No,
of violence or violent. Yeah. Some
I can't remember what it's called,
violent
but
nature. In a violent nature.
in a violent age. So it wasn't necessarily through the mask, but it was from the killer's perspective,
Right.
wasn't it? So
Right.
it's that sort of thing. But it's something I quite enjoy that aesthetic of seeing through the eye holes. And it's something quite fun about that. I think.
I
I know that
swear.
was just a random thought I had. Sorry, I
Yeah, yeah,
didn't mean to like completely derail it, but I was like, I kind of like that scene.
yeah. No, I think so. Yeah.
No, totally. I now this seems silly because we're sort of moving on, but I think there's a recent one where like they're either like gagged or they've been paralyzed or something, and use the killers like talking to them and like put something over their head and you can see through
Oh, okay.
that. And if anyone out there listening off that vague description knows what I'm talking about, please let me know. If I think of it in the meantime, I will flag the poster up here in the podcast and I will let you guys know. But that it's obviously it's not the killer, but like I remember that being the thing is he put something on this person's head and then all of a sudden it's on the camera and you didn't necessarily know you were in that person's perspective. And I thought that was really cool. What were some of your other favorite parts though? What are the other parts that stood out for you?
Well, for me, there was a bit, there's a bit that's very similar to Lucio Fulci's The Beyond, where in Fulci's Beyond, the plumber goes down to the basement of the hotel. It's all it's waterlogged, like a bit, yeah. And then obviously the plumber gets his eyes gouged out. Yeah, very similar in this, when the electrician just goes down the stairs in the same very similar sort of basement, and then he meets his end in a similar sort of way, which I quite liked that. I don't know if it was a little nod or not, but I liked that comparison. It was very similar. I liked that they're obviously realizing that these little wormy things, apart from being very phallic, which of course Geiger's alien is as well. There's the bit where it bursts out of the chest in Deadly Spawn as well, which again is an obvious nod to Alien, which was really good fun. I think, and obviously listening to the family talk over breakfast was definitely my favorite bit.
That was the most realistic bit of the whole bit because it was complete, just not like nothing. Like it was just breakfast talk, like catching up, like
Exactly. And I was totally, I don't know, like I said, I was totally fascinated by this family's breakfast routine. It was great. Yeah, and then I'll tell you another. I mean, I could go on all day about the great bits. The end shot where it's the house and the hill in the background, and then it's grown to another one has grown to such a level. It is the hill, and it just and it looms like bigger than Godzilla, over this sort of valley, which I thought was a great idea. I really liked that. Obviously, it's in a little miniature house and things, and it looks like a miniature house, but it doesn't matter. It's fantastic. How about you, Lauren?
Oh,
Do you have a favorite?
Wait, sorry, I thought Chris was saying something.
Oh, sorry,
no, I
Chris.
wasn't. No, I wasn't. I was waiting for you. Sorry, I just was readjusting myself in the
My
chair.
genuinely my favorite bit is not probably gonna be anyone else's, but I thought it was both really funny and really cringy, which is hard to do at the same time. And it's when you're at this vegetarian party thing, the grandmother is, yeah, you remember I was so
I know what you're
grossed out
gonna
when
say.
we first
Yeah,
watched it. The grandmother's making her famous green sauce, and it basically involves throwing a whole load of vegetables in a blender, and you see the little wormy dude climb up onto the blender, and you know from that moment on, oh my god, this is so disgusting. And I said to Tony, I was like, just even from that moment. And then yes, and they drag it out a bit, they cut it in with other things, but he ends up inside there munching on leaves, and then the grandmother hits the whir button, and
mm.
it's quite funny because he's got this little comic oh no kind of thing that he does. It's like wee! And then you see them all eat it,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
it's the
just
very next shot, isn't it? The very
and
next shot,
it's
they're all
just
sitting
like,
down with it on their plate.
and that was just the whole section of it is beautifully done because you are cringing from the moment that little dude is on top of the blender all the
Yeah.
way until they start putting it in their mouth, and you're just like,
And
hated it.
what's great about that as well is that I don't know if you noticed, but you get each of the is it four of the ladies or 4 or 5 whoever they each you see
Have
them
a bite
each
and
have a
go.
bite in
And then
close
their
up, and they
reaction.
go, and then the next one does it because they're expecting this famous green sauce, aren't they?
Mm.
It's very funny. Yeah, it's really
It
good,
was
and then all hell kicks off because all the little wormy dudes are everywhere. Yeah, it's great.
look. You won't know this, Tony, and I apologize for not the inclusion. But do you know what I thought about Lauren when they were eating that soup? Do you remember a dinner we had with a huge amount of our family at the Sienna Hotel, and they gave us a shot glass of celery to
Celery soup or
cleanse our
juice or the
palate?
cleansing thing.
Oh, there you go.
So I was sitting across from my Uncle Pat and Lauren's over there. So there was like, and Brandon, I think Brandon was there too. And so it was like some people were drinking, like they drink it and there was like no reaction. And it was kind of like that for us though. Like Lauren drank it and you see her face and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta drink it now. And I drink it and you're like, oh God. And then my Uncle Pat drinks it and he's like, oh, this is awful. And then Brandon, so we had like kind of that same moment. I thought about that when I'm watching it. Like, what if something just jumped into the blender? They don't realize that our shots are bad.
Oh no.
No one else was making a face at all. So
And it was that
we
like,
were that scene.
and it was that light green as well that the sauce is. It was just so
Ooh.
gross. It was
Yep.
very like, yeah, honestly, this whole table, I think my family had, like, my mom's family and my dad's family are they're very sweet and lovely in their own ways, but very different. And the mom's family is all like, oh yes, this lovely celery water, and all of us are like,
Like, oh, get it down, get it down. Like,
exactly. It's like, don't vomit in public. Don't vomit in public.
oh, so that reminded me of that. But no, yes, them taking the bites was like the perfect ending for that scene, right? Because
Yeah,
you got to
exactly.
see everybody do that. My favorite scene in the movie was probably the climactic scene of like when the boy is trying to plug in, I guess it was like the radio or whatever to like
Yeah.
electrocute. I just thought it was just really well done. Like, I mean, granted, you could see him like just he's banging the wall, like he's trying to pull, like he's like doing the floor. But like, I just really them in the basement. Like, you could have almost had the movie just be in the basement because of the
Yeah.
way that they drug out different scenes. But anything with the monster, with that when the monster was on the screen, they just it was so good. Like, you're like, this is low budget, and you're like, well, no, it's not that low budget. Like, the monster's
But that,
pretty
that that
damn good.
they would have been a hefty special effects budget. But this is the thing. This is the thing. This is what they got right, and this is what they people don't get right these days. When you know if you've got a very limited budget, and then for some reason these days people seem to be they skimp on the important parts of what what I think of a B movie is, if you're going to see a film called Deadly Spawn or Terrifier or whatever. You want to go and see some blood. You want to see some gore. You want to see the kills, and that's what a lot of the more successful low budget films were doing in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s, Herschel Gordon Lewis and Fulci and people like that. Which they did really well in Deadly Spawn. As obviously, like I said earlier, it was made with a lot of enthusiasm, and that's all over the screen, and with some great special effects, a brilliant monster, some brilliant deaths, really gruesome, really, I mean, cartoony in that Herschel Gordon Lewis kind of style, but really accomplished as well. And then now trying to do that, if it's either CGI'd, which never looks great. Not
Right.
unless you've got the big budget CGI, then for a few grand you're not going to get much. The blood looks like it's been splattered on afterwards, and but that's what. So yeah, what am I saying? That's what makes this, I think, really successful. A really successful sort of low budget horror film.
Yep, I agree. I agree. They hit the mark of what you want to see when you turning on push. You hit it perfectly when you said you want to watch Deadly Spawn and you hit play. You have an expectation list of what you're going to see. I want to see blood. I want
Yeah.
to see cool, fun kills.
Yeah, I want to see Deadly Spawn. That's there's
Yeah,
a film called
yeah.
Deadly Spawn. I want to see the Deadly Spawn. Yeah, and I want to
Yep.
see them being deadly and spawning.
and
And,
vegetarian lunches are just an add-on. They're
Yeah.
yeah,
just an extra fun.
it was exactly that. Yeah, but then as well, the kind of the way the creatures mutate and grow was fascinating as well, and their little different size heads they've got, and
Mhm.
I don't know, it's just I just thought it's really well put together, really well composed. Just it just rushes along, and after it's 85 minutes has gone, and you're still
Yeah.
kind of it's great. I know that the director and I know the cast and the director didn't really do much else. I think he did. There was a kind of a sequel. I think in the 2015. I think I can't remember, but it's called Metamorphosis or something. I don't know how much it's got to do with it. I think it was the same producer, but that's pretty much it. I wouldn't mind checking it out, but I think it's a very different feel to it, I'd imagine. But yeah, the rest
Did
of
you
them
say
haven't.
2015?
I think it was around about 2020, 2015, something like that. I could be bonkers. I could have gone totally mad, which is
No, it
possible.
just seems like a long time for a sequel. Like, that's some
Yeah,
Top Gun
exactly. I
Maverick
mean,
stuff.
maybe it was the 90s, but it was definitely when you look at the cover, it's got that. It's not the same feel to it. I think it's more of a science fiction as well. I think Metamorphosis something it's called. Yeah, but I'll probably check it out at some point. But it's like the sequels to Extra. Extra is a great, again, another great 80s film. I don't think I've ever bothered watching the sequels because I think they've gone again in different directions. Maybe at some point I will, but
Extra 2 is dire.
is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I
which I
did
think
get
again
I
is
did get some extra vibes from that movie. Like, I don't know if it was just the age of it, like, kind of shot around the same time, but yeah, definitely had
I think
some
I
extra
think
vibes.
that's the other thing it did really well. It borrowed very cleverly from a lot of different films. Like you mentioned, Little Shop of Horrors, Alien, the last scene where they're rounding up all the little wormy dudes. I like that. I like wormy dudes. Is was very much reminding me of the end of Night of the Living Dead. When they're rounding them all up. The zombies at the end.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of little nods, which is great, I think. And then you've got the classic trope of the horror loving boy, like in Creepshow, and like in was it Friday the 13th Part 4? Corey Feldman,
Oh
when he
Yes.
yeah.
makes
Yep.
the masks and things. Yeah, so but that's always a great trope. That's always fun when you walk in when the camera goes into this little kid's room and it's covered in horror posters. You're like that was my room. That's the room I used to have. I had that Friday the 13th poster. Or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, which that's always a little bit of fun, and I think that's really clever the way that the filmmakers do that because there's already an affinity between the horror lover watching it and the film. Then I think it's obvious, but it works. For if you're a geek like me.
Well, I will say, like, when you're going to watch Deadly Spawn, you really are like, going after an audience that is wanting to see horror, and so like it definitely checks a lot of those boxes, right? Like,
Yeah,
my wife is not going to be like, "Oh, the Deadly Spawn on YouTube. Like, what's this about?" She just
yeah,
it's not gonna happen. But I also appreciate the fact going into that movie very, very blind.
yeah.
Sometimes that's a really fun time
Like
to
like the
go into a
monsters.
movie. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's a great film. It's a great film for horror lovers, but it's also a great film if you've got your mates around with a few beers. It's that kind of film as well. You maybe got a couple, 2 or 3 mates around. You've got Chinese coming. Your takeaways on its way. You've got a few beers on the go. What should we put on? Something in the background. You don't have to pay much attention to.
Right.
Every now and again, you look up and there's some carnage. It's that feel for me.
Except you would tell your buddies to be quiet during the breakfast scene.
I know. So can you stop talking, please? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. This is some important dialogue. This is some important shit. This is Oscar winning screenplay here.
Sire.
This is some fly on the wall. This is fly on the wall. It was a bit like watching Big Brother, watching people in the house just going about their daily business, but obviously better.
So I was curious though when you just said that they might have had a sequel. I remember when we did our top 10 list that you had like a list of 16 or maybe it was 13 where
Yeah,
Lauren and I
I had,
did
I had, a, I had,
10.
a, I had a few extra.
So this one wasn't that trilogy that you were taught that
No,
you had mentioned
no.
as far
I
as
know. I
standalone.
know. I had Texas Chainsaw 1 and 2, and I think there was another one I couldn't.
You
I
did the
couldn't.
Tombs of the Blind Dead as a whole rather
Tombs of the
than
Blind Dead quadrilogy. The
That's what it was.
quadrilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I couldn't. It's
You
hard
you
to it's hard to pick one over the other. I mean, there's definitely a couple that aren't as good, but they kind of work as a
oh,
force.
you exposed loopholes and that's okay. I like that. Think outside of the box. It's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, exactly.
creative thinking. I've got an interesting question. So obviously back in the day, they don't do this anymore, but we used to have double bills, horror double bills. This
Yeah.
was a thing in the theater. What would you put with the Deadly Spawn as the double bill if you got to do one today? So you can do any movie that's up till today, not
I
just when
mean,
it came out.
that's good. That's good. I mean, Deadly Spawn. I think Deadly Spawn and Evil Dead would be a cracking double bill.
Ooh.
Um,
Wow.
I think that would work.
Wow.
Again, two films that just go for it and enjoy themselves. Um, Schindler's List, no.
You're
Uh,
always freaking shit. It's an ongoing
um,
joke with him.
no, I don't
That
know.
actually makes perfect sense because when you go to the drive-in, you have two completely different types of movies. You have that PG, maybe PG-13 movie for the kids, and then they fall asleep after the first one because it starts at like 8:30,
There you
so
go.
it's dark
Good idea.
outside, and then you get the R-rated movie, which is more for the adults. So like this movie would be more for like the kids, the teens, and then you
Yeah.
go Schindler's List for anyone that wants to be really depressed at 1 o'clock in the morning when it finally ends.
There you go. I
What
like that. I don't know. What about you? What about you guys? What would you put on with it?
do you think, Chris?
I don't know. I think I would probably go more recent. Or I mean,
Yeah.
if you're going to go back, you could pick we mentioned Extra or something like that. But like, a movie that I think would actually go with that. And I don't know why, but Hatchet.
Perfect.
Oh, that
Yeah.
would be
Good shout.
good.
That's a good
I don't
shout. We
know.
watched we watched them the other day, actually. Funny
We
enough,
did.
I
Did you really?
really, yeah, I really enjoy the Hatchet films. I've got a lot of time for them. And it's you're right because it's just they're similar because they're entertaining, they're funny, but the
Yeah.
wars there, the monsters there. It's got everything. So I think that's a really good shout, actually.
No, I like that. That's
So
good.
the
And
onus is on you now, Lauren. What's yours?
Yeah.
yeah, those are two really solid ones and both like chock full of kills. I am not sure why. In my brain, this is a very funny double bill, but you could put it with Gremlins.
With
Gremlins.
Gremlins. Oh,
Okay.
that's good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's total contrast, but I think in a good way. And it's both like they're very 80s. It's very like it's kids in the house are the central characters, and so it's like kid focused family horror. You've got like this thing that's out of control, and in one instance, it's like the scariest, creepiest thing ever, and in another instance, it's just like this adorable, cute, weird thing. But I don't know. There's something about like the out of controlness of the gremlins and how many of them there are, and they're spreading around. It's like
And they've both got liquidizer deaths in.
and blender, yes, the
Blender
blender
death.
death double bill.
Blender death double bill.
That's how
Yeah,
you're going to market it.
that's good. I like it. And they say you've got the sort of the way they transform and become
Yeah,
something
they
they
like
weren't at the
multiply
beginning,
and
which is which I think that's really good.
I think
I think both yours are better than mine, which I'm a little bit upset about.
I
I
don't
think
know.
they're all good.
Well, yours is very like low budget. What can you do to make the most of the special
Yeah,
effects? Like you've got a really strong visual link with yours. It makes a
yeah,
lot of sense to me.
yeah. Okay, okay. I like Chris's idea of having a more modern film to work alongside it as well, though. That's good.
Yeah, and Hatchet's great because it's again it's high action. It's lots of kills, boom, boom, boom. You know what
Killian
you're
goes
getting.
after it. Yep. It's one of those that you watch it and after 80 minutes you're like, okay, we're done. And that was awesome. So
Which is why they did four. I totally understand.
I just think we just need to rent out a drive-in somewhere one weekend and just get this like just back to back to back to back, like 24 hours a day, Friday starting at 8 o'clock at night till Sunday night at midnight, and just be like, here is
Whole lot of
every
horror.
movie that would be great for the drive-in.
That'd be cool.
I would love that. I miss a drive-in. Do they still have them in North Carolina?
We might have one in North Carolina. So they had one in Massachusetts, and got to go. And my double feature was Beetlejuice, and Trap, the M. Night Shyamalan
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
Whatever, yeah, his name. But yeah, so like, it was one of my favorite nights up in Massachusetts because I was the drive-in. We would go as kids to the drive-in in Colorado, and like that, there's no better way to take your kids to the movies because you can get a whole. It's like per car, so like $20, and then they just your car, you bring your food and all that stuff. It's just something nice about sitting there and you're just kind of like in the drive-in. But then I think like I saw two new movies that were released. Now you want to see some of the older movies, right? Like you want to see like ones that you don't need the Dolby surround sound and this and that. It's like you want to have that classic feel for it. But they have a Halloween horror 24-hour thon at that drive-in. And if you stay, you get your name on this plaque. Like if you stay the whole thing, I was like, I will do that someday. That is on my bucket list. So,
That's cool.
I'm gonna have to do a
but,
live stream so people can hang out with you.
well, no, maybe we need witches to be when it's out. We'll put that at the drive-in. That'll be
That's it.
like the
That's
8 o'clock time slot.
one film, all 24 hours.
One film for exactly. I was just gonna say that. Perfect. I like that.
There-
That sounds lucrative.
It'd be like a Twilight Zone episode. Like, oh, now for the next one is this, the movie just loops,
Yeah.
and then the person gets sucked into the movie.
There you go.
I mean, then you really deserve a plaque, right? Because
You ended up as the character in the movie.
exactly.
Yes. Yes. Like that creep show.
Well, that
episode.
was a very good recommendation, and I'm glad we did that movie because it was one that I would have probably never watched.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it just wasn't something that was on my radar in the sense of like I'll go back and watch that, and it definitely hit the nostalgia 80s vibe. It hit the kills. It hit everything that it had. So
Yeah.
definitely worth watching.
That
Love
makes
that.
me very happy.
Yeah, I said thank you very, very much, Tony. And to our listeners, if you want to try and watch it, I know here in the UK you can get it on Tubi. It's obviously available on DVD and VHS. And I think Chris, you said you got it on YouTube.
Yeah, you can do Shutter if you have Shutter. It's on Shutter, but I
Ah,
was able to find it on YouTube.
Perfect. Easy and done. We hope you enjoyed this. Thank you, Tony, for a recommendation. And we'll have to do maybe Chris, one of your top tens next time.
Okay, well, I know which one I would pick. So.
oh,
Awesome. See you next time, horror
thank you,
fans.
everyone. Thank you.
If you want to share your thoughts about this episode, please head to our Facebook or YouTube pages. We're grateful to Kukurbit, who made our music. Thank you for listening, and please join us next time for the London Horror Movie Club.